It makes me feel like I am being victimized by the county government.
Property values are through the roof. One person in each county has the power to change that. And they don't even have to explain to you why they're increasing your taxes. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston pledges to clean up encampments. Literally, trash services are now being offered outside tents. Colorado's Republican Party is shrinking by the day, but now it's on purpose, while the GOP is mulling a plan to keep some voters out of party business. And a high-flying Coloradan prepares to plummet out of the sky on purpose.
It's more than just a death-defying stunt, that you do to check off the bucket list.
Come fly with us tonight on Next. We all know Colorado is getting more expensive, but seeing the property value of your home go up $500,000 in 1 year, that's something else. Now a group of people in Castilla County in southern Colorado say they're filing a recall petition against the county assessor who comes up with those values. All part of a confusing process of property valuations where assessors seem to have a lot of the power.
That you can't consider that as a building.
Meetings like this happen all across Colorado.
These people don't have the wherewithal and the money to make these kind of changes.
People like Thomas Larson in Castilla County protest their property valuations to the County Board of Equalization. His went up from $139,000 to more than $640,000 in 1 year.
And I'm recommending an adjustment on that value.
Well, thank you.
After his initial appeal, the deputy assessor in the county then lowers the value nearly $300,000. Why? We don't know, and we don't get to know. She has the power to do what she wants, as long as the rest of the Board of Equalization approves it.
I'm recommending that it gets lowered down to $350,000.
In Castilla County, property values this year went up 64%. High, but not the highest in the state. Assessors use a formula accounting for recent sales in the area to compute the valuations. Every year, the state does a statistical audit to try and find if any county raised property values wrongly. No county has failed that audit in the last 5 years.
And I think that is a fair balance.
So while Thomas and his neighbors can petition to have the assessor taken out of office, they may not ever know why their property values jumped from $139,000 to $640,000 and then back down to $350,000. We wanted to try and understand more about what we saw in that meeting in Castilla County and the whole process about how it all works. Reached out to the assessor's office in Castilla County several times over the last week, never heard back from them. Of course, that won't stop us from asking questions. If you have an insane property valuation or something that you think we should look into, get our attention through social media or by the email on your screen. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston plans to, quote, decommission encampments, and that won't happen overnight. Until then, he's pledged to provide the people living in those encampments with services like trash pickup. The city started waste collection at multiple encampments in Capitol Hill last week, handing out trash bags and designating a truck for pickup twice a week. It's a service that homeless advocates say is long overdue. This month, the nonprofit House Keys Action Network surveyed nearly 60 unhoused people living in encampments. The majority supported trash services like dumpsters or rolling trash cans stationed near those tents. Some, however, worried that increased attention by city employees could lead to sweeps or even criminalization.
Being able to wash our hands or, clean up, like being able to wash our areas would be nice, and not being kicked out of everywhere right away. We have no problem, following guidelines and stuff as long as we're being treated properly too.
Mayor Johnston's team calls the waste collection an effort to improve health and safety. They also plan to provide services like bathrooms, but don't have specifics on when those will start yet. A little rain in the area. We've been talking about heat. Today we're talking about a little wet. It's all about to get a lot wetter. Danielle Grant with us here explaining that rain tonight, possibly even some flash flooding, right?
Absolutely, Mark. We have this really strong storm that has been just hammering the south side of town. It's going to cruise back in here to the metro area within probably about the next 20 minutes time. You can kind of see these dark, ominous skies in the distance, but the radar telling a different story. These storms, they started early on up into the high country. So much lightning out there, and now finally they're rolling off the foothills into the city. You can see Jefferson, Douglas County. They have a flash flood warning in place until 8 o'clock. They've seen about 2 inches of rain already within that area. As we zoom zoom back in. Heavy rainfall coming through Castle Pines North, Lone Tree, right there around I-25. A separate cell closer toward Lakewood. Heavy rains coming through, and now all of this making its move into the downtown core. We have the Rockies game, we have the Rapids game happening tonight, so a lot to think about if you are heading out there, and certainly some delays will be possible. Flood watch will remain until midnight tonight and then go back into effect tomorrow, because once again we're anticipating these monsoon storms to continue to cruise into the Front Range and off to the eastern plains. I'll be tracking the timing for you, as well as showing you that 7-day forecast coming up in about 10 minutes.
There's a new issue at Denver Public Schools that has the superintendent calling the situation painful. It's been 50 years since the U.S. Supreme Court ordered Denver Public Schools to integrate classrooms, but a new report commissioned by a Latino advocacy group suggests the district has taken steps backwards in recent years. They're calling it resegregation. The study, conducted by researchers with CU Boulder and the Latino Education Coalition, say nearly half of the district's Latino students and English learners attend schools where a significant majority of their peers are students of color or students living below the poverty line. On the other hand, the study's authors estimate that 70% of white students attend schools with a majority white student population. That's despite the fact that nearly 3/4 of DPS students are students of color. Study says students in those majority white schools are also more likely to be labeled as, quote, gifted and talented, and more likely to graduate. The district says it's partnering with Latino Education Coalition for a follow-up study to investigate the causes of resegregation and identify possible solutions. The Colorado Republican Party wants to gain back power in the state. They're planning to do that by taking away power from voters. Party leadership wants to limit who can pick Republican candidates that run for office. They want to do it privately and without unaffiliated voter interference. Politics guy Marshall Zellender explains the two-step process that has a pivotal party vote on Saturday.
Colorado law, since 2018, allows unaffiliated voters to cast a ballot in primaries to help decide which candidates make the November ballot. Unaffiliated voters can return either a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot, but not both. There is a new effort by the leaders of the Colorado Republican Party to close the party's primary to only select few Republicans, with no petition on candidates. There are 1.8 million unaffiliated voters in Colorado, almost half as many Republicans, 931,000, and one more number. There are about 3,000 Republicans that vote as delegates at the state party assembly. That's who Republicans want picking the candidates. So if the Republican Party were to close the primaries to those who show up to the caucus and assembly process, it would not only be keeping the unaffiliated voters from participating, but about 99% of all Republicans as well. The law that allowed unaffiliated voters to vote in either the Republican or Democratic primary also allowed for the Republican or Democratic Party to opt out of that. But the opt-out requires 75% of the party's leadership to vote to opt out. It's rare to get 75% of the party's leadership in one meeting, so getting to that threshold is near impossible. That brings us to Saturday. Republican Party leaders will vote on a Republican Party bylaw amendment. I'll summarize this. It basically says that if you're a party leader who does not show up to vote next month, you will be counted as voting in favor of the opt-out. The critics' reviews are in. Former GOP party chair Dick Wadhams wrote in a column, quote, "A citizen of the failed Soviet Union would find this distortion of the ballot terribly familiar." John Caldera of the libertarian-minded Independence Institute calls it, quote, "a move Stalin would be proud of." I reached out to Party Chair Dave Williams today, did not hear back yet. So why does the Republican Party want to limit who can take part in selecting its members? Here's one reason from one of the handouts. And you'll see on the left side, consequently, nearly every area of our lives is governed by people who cannot be verified as having been honestly elected. That is a lie. So they are basing their decision to opt out of more people taking part in this lie that we cannot go and verify that elections are accurate.
For a party that hasn't had this little power in the state in decades, a power that wants to grow, why are they seemingly disenfranchising other voters?
I mean, the literature suggests that if you don't have the interference of the outsiders, that we get more people who have these like-minded, Trump-like, Tina Peters-like thoughts, that we would win, we as the party would win on the ballot. And we need more of those candidates that only we ourselves can pick. And you outsiders are getting in the way of that.
Interesting. Marshall Zellender, who puts my new little glasses to shame. Thank you. In a decision between Colorado and Alabama, the federal government is choosing us. After years of back and forth, it appears Space Command headquarters will remain in Colorado Springs. It's one of the few announcements that has both Republicans and Democrats praising the Biden administration. The decision was made today. Senior officials told the Associated Press the president was swayed by the head of Space Command, General James Dickinson, saying that moving headquarters would be a setback for military readiness. The decision is a reversal from former President Donald Trump's order to move Space Command headquarters to Huntsville, Alabama. But the move has been delayed for several years. Alabama lawmakers have held up defense nominations, budget bills, and other congressional business in an effort to force a decision. They claim Biden was delaying the decision in retaliation for Alabama's abortion laws. Remember this day. It's one of the few that you'll have a Republican representative, someone like Lauren Boebert, joining Democratic Senators John Hickenlooper and Michael Bennet in saying, yes, we are all on board for this. Remember this day. Well, one of the largest credit card companies say you can no longer use their card to buy one of Colorado's most well-known products. If you want to buy weed, even legally, don't bring a MasterCard. A MasterCard spokesperson told us today that the company has asked banks and credit card services who work with cannabis businesses to stop accepting MasterCard purchases. That applies even in states like Colorado where weed is legal. MasterCard says they're following the federal law where marijuana is still illegal. It's a common issue plaguing legit cannabis businesses across the state, which are already dealing with plummeting sales this year. Colorado lawmakers have been trying to find a workaround for years, supported multiple bills protecting banking services for state-licensed cannabis businesses. So far, all of those proposals have gone up in smoke. The Latina business community in Edgewater is fighting gentrification by building each other up. They're forming their own co-op through the Edgewater Collective. And your donations have provided $6,000 to help them provide training and tools for lasting financial services. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaigns through 162 weeks now, that's amazing, have raised more than $11 million for Colorado's nonprofits. If you know of a community in need in Colorado, shoot us a note, next@9news.com, and we'll work to find a trusted nonprofit that's in a position to help.
Traditional skydives are at 120 miles per hour, and that feels so slow by comparison now.
When jumping out of a plane loses its edge, try jumping out of a plane head first for speed. And the Power Grid is like an exclusive club. You've got to wait in long lines and maybe even pay some fees if you want to get in. Federal regulators want to help clean energy projects cut the line. Next. Buying a solar panel for your home, pretty straightforward. Getting it hooked up to the power grid, totally different story. Now, federal regulators want power companies to let clean energy cut the line, especially for that wait. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission voted unanimously last week to approve new rules, but they say will speed up the process. Right now, energy generators like wind or solar plants have to go through regional authorities and utility companies before they can be connected to the power grid. If you've waited months for your Excel to hook up your third-party solar panel, for example, you're already familiar with how long that process can take. New rules will require transmission providers like Excel, we've talked a lot about them on this show, to respond to applications for interconnections by strict deadlines and also allow them to review and approve multiple applications at the same time. Want to bring Danielle Grant back in. Danielle, it's wet out there and it's going to get wetter.
Yeah, it's pretty soggy. And once again, Mark, we're going to be tracking these storms pushing through again for us tomorrow, with the biggest threats being for the heavy rain that's continuing to come down. Isn't this an amazing shot? This is our live camera atop Lookout Mountain. You can just see that storm and the rain shaft pushing in on the west side of town. It is just coming down and will continue. These storms tracking in from the southwest, zipping off to the northeast. This is our future cast again within the next about 45 minutes. Most of the action really heavy in the south side of town, Jefferson, Douglas, Elbert counties. Everything will drift off to the east by about 11 o'clock, and we'll be looking at mostly cloudy skies tonight here in the metro area. Tomorrow morning, a bit of sunshine, but the clouds quickly will be increasing. And the thing about tomorrow is these storms will arrive a bit sooner than what we saw today. I'm thinking about 3, 4 o'clock here to the metro area. They'll, of course, fire up in the high country first before racing across the city. By about 7 o'clock tomorrow evening, we have a good chance at seeing potentially a few severe storms across the the far northeastern plains, where everyone is under a marginal threat for severe weather tomorrow afternoon. Biggest threats, again, the flash flooding and possibly some large hail. Temperatures tomorrow, a whole lot cooler than where we have been. Believe it or not, we have had 10 days in a row in the 90s. Today we touched 90 degrees on the nose, but tomorrow, how do the 80s sound? We'll quickly cool off once those storms roll in. A lot of folks in northeastern Colorado in the 80s with 60s and 70s up in the high country. 80s here to stay. Afternoon storms are here to stay, but they will be a bit more isolated toward the end of the week. And right now I have mid-70s on deck on Sunday.
You've heard of skydiving. What about speed skydiving? Colorado Thrill Seeker is preparing to take an extreme sport even up a level. And Colorado's new old license plates inspire a lot of feelings, good and bad. Tonight, they inspire a question, and we have the answers. Next. Some of us might call jumping out of an airplane at 12,000 feet crazy. We met a guy who calls it practice. Practice for the Skydiving World Cup in the Czech Republic. Matt Fry will be representing the United States, competing for speed.
I learned it's more than just a death-defying stunt, that you do to check off the bucket list, but instead it's a whole complex sport with a lot of history and a lot of diversity. Well, the first couple times it's a little bit of sensory overload. It's loud, it's windy, you're taking in these incredible views that you would normally only get in a commercial flight. After several jumps, time starts to slow and you start to become really focused on what you're doing and the entire skydive. One of the exciting things about skydiving is there are so many disciplines. The last several years, I competed in a discipline called artistic free fly, but it's nice having the opportunity to try a different discipline and see how much I can grow in this one, speed skydiving. On August 19th, I'll be traveling over to Czech to represent the United States parachute team to compete at the World Cup. So I'm looking forward to going to the World Cup, but at least right now I'm working on incremental gains, trying to improve and beat my own personal best. 476 kilometers per hour. So that's 295 miles per hour. So most typical traditional skydives are at 120 miles per hour. And that feels so slow by comparison now. It's definitely an advanced discipline. It has a lot of associated risk. And there's just a lot of facets to consider if you're going to compete and compete safely. I think competition is the best way to improve. So I'm really excited to go be surrounded by the best speed flyers in the world and just kind of absorb, take it all in. There's something cool about being around professionals who are just amazing at what they do. And it's just, it's a great feeling when you're in that community.
Tonight's next question comes from Jesus in Denver, who's confused by the blacked out license plates he's seen around town.
Lately I've seen pitch black license plates. My question is, do they mean anything, or are they just for people that just want black license plates? Thanks.
So Kyle is Next's resident license plate nerd, but I'll fill in as best as I can. The black plate with white lettering is a throwback to Colorado plates from 1945. It's one of the 4 re-releases that Colorado historians can get their hands on. $25 from each plate purchase goes to the Colorado Disability Funding Committee, which provides grant for disability assistance programs. That's cool. I always thought it was just to match the color of your car. Feedback is next. Thanks, Aaron. Your feedback this evening from Michael starting off. What is so disturbing is Castilla County is the poorest county in the state. A lot of feedback on those property taxes. Then when I was down there in Castilla County just a couple days ago, people were talking about putting their houses for sale with the perceived value. They couldn't get that much money. That's what's interesting about this story. We'll see you next time.